Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning into the Liberty Report. With us today is Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you today.
Good morning, Dr. Paul. How are you this morning?
Radiant, raring to go.
That's right. That's right.
Except we're running out of problems. Everything is getting settled,
Yeah.
and nobody writes about Ukraine anymore. They starting to write about Poland. I wonder what's going on over there. The Polish president talking to Zelensky, and I had mentioned to you, I don't like those conspiracy things. It reminds me of 1938.
Yeah.
You know, I was 3 years old there, and I remember it very distinctly. But today, we're going to talk about something really up to date. And a lot of people were and continue to be interested. And that is the story of Liz Cheney.
Yeah.
And for some reason, you know, if you're going to make get an immediate impression of a person without knowing him and with license to be unfair, I never really liked her much. I think she's, well, okay, she doesn't seem very friendly. How about that?
Yeah.
And she also is on a mission. But I ventured to guess her mission is going to fail. I sort of had a bad night last night, you know. Things didn't go well. And the reason I think it's going to fail, that maybe not on the short run, but short run or long run, if your driving force is your hatred towards somebody, eventually you're going to come up short. And in this case, it looks like her hate campaign and her idea of using that to become a unifier, you know, bring everybody together. Well, a lot of Republicans hate Trump, and the independents hate Trump, and the Democrats really hate Trump. That I'll just bring them together. Well, it looks like that dream may have ended, even though she might not have awakened yet. She's not awake yet to that fact. And the title of an article on Zero Hedge, Liz Cheney vows to do whatever it takes to stop Trump.
Yeah.
And boy, you know, her job is getting tougher all the time. You know, she probably endorsed that, you know, the raid.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Endorsed the raid, tried to impeach him, everything else. It doesn't seem to hunt. He's going to go down in history as the most popular president that was impeached twice.
Yeah.
So that says there's a little bit left to the system, but I don't know how much is left to the motivation of those people who are, you know, just going nuts over expressing their hatred, and they're in a way terrified of him, I think, you know, because he's liable to speak his mind, even though sometimes we have to figure out exactly what's on his mind.
Yeah.
But he in the last few weeks, I mean, he did well yesterday in the elections. You know, he supported Palin, and she looks like she's going to go to Congress. And I don't know what it means, but Trump got his passports back again.
Yeah,
now
really.
he can travel, but they must be thinking, well, maybe he won't escape to Russia or something. Something. So anyway, it was big news. It'll continue to be big news. I still think she's in a dream about her becoming Abraham Lincoln and unifying the country. Maybe like Lincoln unified.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's probably her plan. No, it was a stunning defeat by any stretch. I mean, she was widely expected to lose. You know, there were some desperate last-ditch measures. She dug her dad up and put him on the screen. That wasn't very effective. She started begging Democrats to vote for her because it's an open primary in Wyoming. That didn't do very well. But in fact, quite a few did vote for her. So if we put up this first clip, this is the results in the primary in Wyoming. Harriet Hageman, 66.3%, Liz Cheney, 28.9%. She lost by almost 40 points. I don't know if a sitting member of Congress who was not in jail or what have you has ever lost by such a massive amount. It was shocking and stunning. And in fact, someone on Twitter pointed out that she lost even worse because there was a lot of Dem crossover votes for her in Wyoming, the people who wanted to hurt Trump and voted for her. So among Republican actual voters, she did even worse than this. But of course, as with all the neocons, when they have a massive loss, when they have a massive failure, as they always do, they view it as a success, and she's riding high like she's the head of the party now. She's,
right.
she's
Her party.
Her own party, yeah. So it's pretty remarkable to watch.
Well, Trump seems to be pulling victory out of what seems to be a disastrous situation for him. So maybe he has a better handle on what the people are thinking than the people who've been in Washington a long time, those people with a lot of expertise in politics. But of the 10 people who voted to impeach, only 2 of them survived so far. I don't know what will happen there, but it looks like Trump's looking good there. He was looking good yesterday. He got his passports back again, and even the trial, that fake trial, which people, it's out of the news finally, but nobody believed him anyway. So they knew it was just a game they were playing, but they never change. I mean, they are dedicated. Many of them are part of the cultural Marxist system. They're dedicated lefties, big government people, and they just can't believe that anything that Trump ever said even came close to making sense, except for a few million people out there that said, well, what we want is somebody to just speak up. And it's not that, we criticize it when he's going in a direction we don't like, but when you look at Trump's record, he took some positions, I'm thinking like right to life. He took a position, who would ever think that he would be the one that would do the things, and some of the things I didn't particularly like, but he did it, and he satisfied, the Christian right like no other president ever did. So for them to say he's a total failure politically, who knows what's going to happen, but there were times when I thought, well, he's getting hit pretty hard. He's not getting any help at all from the Washington Post. And that turns out to be a positive too.
Well, speaking of the Washington Post, someone who is getting help from the Washington Post, let's put up that next clip, is Liz Cheney. Here's the Washington Post tweet today. Analysis: Liz Cheney went against the clear path. Now she leads an anti-Trump movement. What is this movement that they're talking about? And she was absolutely trounced at the polls. Only the Washington Post and the neocons would view such a massive defeat as a great success. Now I'm leading a movement. In fact, to add insult to injury, she says now she's thinking about running for president. So can you imagine the people of Wyoming basically tossed her out on her ear? She dusts herself off and says, oh yeah, well, I'm going to be president then.
She's probably saying, I really don't need Wyoming.
I
just need California and New York and those kind of, and that's really what she's doing. She wants to be in business with the very, very progressive Marxist Democrats. And at the same time, there is a lot of resentment against her. The people, the establishment Republicans just can't stand him because he's come in and disrupted their party. And they got, of course, the media, which would, want to promote those ideas. You had several Republican governors and senators who were willing to take that position, but less so now. If they want to stay in office, they're not going to be pounding on Trump, anything like they have been.
Yeah, well, I have to admit, I was very happy to see her lose so badly, not just badly, but super badly. The only thing that sort of sobered me up in my glee is I wish she had been thrown out because of her foreign policy, her terrible neocon foreign policy, her terrible approach to government, big government neoconservatism. Unfortunately, it wasn't that tossed her out. It was her, really, as you say, it was hate. She was all about hate, and the people, I think, are getting tired of that. So it's kind of like, we'll take one in the W column. And there are a lot of people who are running victory laps now that the neocons took one on the chin. I would say, again, the neocons, they actually get power and strength from being wrong and losing and being failures. So unfortunately, this is not time to celebrate the end of neoconservatism. They'll find another way around.
Well, this fits my argument that foreign policy is very strongly bipartisan.
Yeah.
You know, they work together. But I think now that we can call it tri-party.
Yeah.
With her out there leading the charge on a new party to undermine Trump. But that is actually very true, that she is going to keep pounding away. She's going to be driven by hate. And I think of this problem of the hate into a campaign. Sometimes short terms, you know, it's reflects and people figure out, and they have, and they take care of the career of the politician. In this sense, it took care of the practicality of Cheney being in politics, but it hasn't really quieted her. But I think otherwise, see, I consider the Speaker of the House is this too strong? A very hateful person?
Yeah, I think so. Remember when she ripped up that speech like a kid, like a spoiled brat?
But you know what? And there's more stories coming about her. Maybe the media is getting tired of her too, because it was the husband, now the son.
Yeah,
the son's involved, and she might even be the boss of the family for all we know.
The capo.
She's the boss of the Congress anyway, and she knows how to impeach people. She's the first, Speaker of the House, and twice impeached the president.
What a job. Well, let's look at a couple tweets just because I loaded them up. Well, actually, here's the next one. You mentioned this, but let's look at it. This is a weird headline. Liz Cheney vows to do, quote, whatever it takes to stop Trump. That's kind of scary, especially considering how her dad likes to shoot people while hunting, right? Easy there, Liz, easy. And then the next one, here's a shout out to our good buddy Tom DiLorenzo. Liz Cheney compares herself to former President Abraham Lincoln during her concession speech to her loss. Oh my gosh, they are so delusional, the neocons. It's almost humorous.
And this year is an interesting year. I mean, we haven't talked as much about politics on this program. The whole time we've been. I mean, we've talked about politics, but we've talked more about it because you're so upset with Cheney. So that motivates you. So, I'll tell you what, the fall election will be a big deal too.
Yeah.
And of course, the underlying threat and the concern is their hatred has driven them to be excessive in their just total ignoring and flaunting the law.
Yeah.
And you read stories that used to be, oh, somebody came there and he's mad as the devil and he has a gun. But now they say, well, there's a group of people going someplace and they're armed.
Yeah.
And I thought, maybe they are, you know. So there are some people that would like to see us both on the side of, I guess, right and left. The libertarian, of course, rejects the notion that change should come apart through violence. But Republicans and Democrats are very much willing to use it. And that's why you point out the bad thing was that Cheney didn't lose because of her foreign policy.
Yeah. Well, it's still, we'll take a win, we'll be happy, we'll ultimately be disappointed. Well, let's move into something that's caught your attention, I know, and it's pretty upsetting. Something blatantly illegal, but let's put on this next clip. We saw it on Zero Hedge. Minneapolis public schools promised to lay off white teachers before cutting educators of color. That's amazing. You can almost hear poor old Martin Luther King rolling over in his grave when you hear something like this.
And I saw an interview this morning. It was a representative, a black Republican, and he hit it on the nose. He said it's the most racist things you can conceive of. And the way he pictured it was, this is an attack to blame people in the past. They did wrong, they caused these conditions, we need to steal more money from this group and give to this group way back, even if we have to give it to their grandchildren. It's all in the past. And then when it comes to, well, we have to change these rules, and that's what they're doing here, because they want to emphasize this racism stuff, and that's very current. But they also want to change the attitude of people so that when you hire a teacher and all the future and continue to teach in a university, that this is. And he said this is the worst form. It's gone absolutely opposite of what a Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Remember the great statement about him.
Yeah.
It should be the character of the person, not the color of her skin.
Yeah.
And here, the whole country is run by by the color of their skin, and it's a real tragedy. And when they do this, they're just so blunt. It's so blunt that they're up front. That's one thing, but that's part of the intimidation. What they're doing is describing, these are the rules, you better watch out or you'll get canceled, and they won't be hired, or they're worrying about being laid off. There's some people, a lot of teachers aren't going back, and they might be able to do this, but there's some teachers sort of like in the military, that for some reason they're there, and that's their whole life, and they do their job the best they can. So here they doing this with her too, promote the layoff of all teachers. Well, how do we know which ones we should lay off? Well, we'll lay off the white teachers, because we know how evil they are.
Yeah, they think that they're doing people of color a favor by doing that.
Yeah.
But we'll see. It's a terrible. I mean, I have to hope there'll be some kind of backlash. I know there are plenty of people in Minneapolis who are not happy about this, of all colors, who are not happy about such a thing.
Yeah.
Well, last we want to mention today is pretty interesting, and it's ironically interesting. We can put up that next clip. L.A. had a Soros DA, Gascon, and they wanted to get rid of him because he's letting everyone else out of jail to kill other people, right? As typical. So they did a recall. And believe it or not, Dr. Paul, we have the best elections in the world. It just barely failed. In fact, let's look up. There was a great tweet about it. Let's put this next clip up. It barely failed. This is Michael Knowles. Wow, crazy to think that almost 200,000 signatures were invalid, a number that brought the petition just slightly below the threshold requirement. What are the odds? So they went through all these signatures on the petition, and they canceled out just enough so they didn't have to put it on the ballot.
I think they're cheating.
You can't say that.
No, I'll be canceled. No, that is really bad. And this control of elections, it gets to the point where it becomes pure democracy. If you're up front and you had people register, I'm a voter, I'm a citizen, I vote, and we count the votes, we could live with it. And there was a time when most of the time they did that. But people have been cheating in elections for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's the nature of things so often that the temptation is so strong. But of course, my argument is if you had a libertarian society and a government, there'd be so little for the government to pass out. The only thing the government would be involved in would be the protection of your freedom to spend your own money the way you want, and working to make sure there's not 87,000 new armed guard people coming into your house and checking your books. That's what it should be about. But no, they just continue to do this, and that's why I can't believe that most people read this. I think the very dedicated Marxist type of people we don't like, they say, oh, looks like they did their job this time. But the people who know what's going on and say, they cheat in elections, and maybe Trump's big mistake after this last election, he should have never let anybody get away with being accused of removing the president or something like that. He says, all I want is an honest election. I want all the votes counted.
Yeah,
so, but that doesn't happen. Eventually, though, it's going to be, unfortunately, if we don't help out in having a better system of government, then the government will go to the streets. And if it were just demonstrations, see, the demonstrations to stop Vietnam, they were good because they finally got Congress to woke up. And then also, on COVID, the people went to the streets, and the Congress woke up again, and things shifted. So people do. I think that's real democracy. Of course, the other thing that I think is real democracy is when you vote with the way you spend your money. That's why it should be your money, and you get to spend it any way you want, and then the results should there happen. As long as there's freedom of exchange, and it's your money you keep or spend or whatever, there are elements which becomes much more pure democracy than what they talk about. They think that the dictatorship of the majority is the right thing to do. That's what we are now. But that wouldn't be overly bad if it was the domination of a real honest vote. Yeah. But what if the vote is dishonest, and then you say, well, 51%, well, we keep them, but without even questioning. Wow, that is a coincidence, isn't it?
One of the things that really struck me, and this is why I suggested to you that maybe we talk about this a little bit, is that, and I'm generalizing, but generally speaking, these types, the Soros types that are elected, the people that back them, they are the ones who also say it's racist to require people to show an ID to vote. It's racist to require people to actually be citizens of the country that they're voting in. It's totally oppressive to make people prove that they live where they say they live. Well, let's put up this next clip. Here's why they invalidated all those signatures. These very people who said it's racist to show your ID, put up this next clip if you can. Do the one before that, please. Over 88,000 of these signatures were invalidated because the person signing the petition was not a registered voter. This is what they love. They love having non-voters in there. But when it comes to one of their own, well, then all of a sudden they want strict voting laws and strict requirements.
We didn't monitor it, but if somebody had monitored every report about this vote and everything, television, radio, and newspaper, they would never have mentioned that fact.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
That would be, that would suggest something fishy going on there. They're inconsistent. And the people don't like inconsistency. Remember how we would report how a speaker or a senator or somebody would be preaching the gospel of why you have to obey the rules and because you're selfish and you have to protect the public health. And they say that if you don't do that, you're some type of an evil person. But once they do that, then the people, will figure, well, what am I going to do about that? And sometimes they feel very frustrated. But they never liked it when we were pinpointing and said, so-and-so said this, and this is what they did. Yeah. And here they were having a very nice dinner in a fancy restaurant, thumbing their,
Yeah, no masks.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of something fishy, and let's go ahead and put on that next one, actually. This is definitely something fishy when you talk about this in LA. Election observers won't be allowed to view vote counting in LA District Attorney recall. So, not only did they invalidate just enough signatures so they wouldn't have to have it, they wouldn't allow anybody to observe it. And I was an election observer in a previous life, as you know, Dr. Paul, and this was a massive red flag. If you weren't allowed in a polling section, in fact, I monitored Hungary's vote to join NATO, and there was one polling station that I was not allowed in out of all the ones I visited. That became international news. It was headline story. I was interviewed in all the Hungarian media about it because you just don't do that. Well, here they just flat out say, no, you can't monitor it. Too bad, you can't do it. It's a huge red flag if you're an election observer. It goes to show that our elections here are not what they claim to be.
And then they wonder why the percentage of people who don't trust the government keeps going up and up, which is healthy because they otherwise, what I want where it doesn't matter that much. You don't buy government, you don't buy influence, you don't do this through money. Then you wouldn't have the money going in by the pharmaceuticals and military industrial complex. There'd be no incentive because they would have no control. But they do this and then it becomes so corrupt and they get involved in the elections. If it gets close, they just change the rules again. And I think that's probably, what has happened is most people, maybe including myself as well, that we didn't realize that the people are more alert than we were quite aware of, and people are alert. You know, they're coming around. I mean, Trump isn't getting up there and is exactly a flattering speech and soft and professional about this. I think the people finally saw that what he was doing was he was challenging that. You know, the little conversation I ever had with the president was that the only thing that I thought it was pretty neat when you got it is that you were willing to challenge political correctness.
Yeah.
You know, from the
like
day one he was doing that, and that is trying to have people not settle the debate, but just to settle that nonsense of allowing people to do what they want to do if they're not hurting people.
Yeah.
That's a strange thing that comes with liberty, is you get to do dumb things. Yeah. Don't hurt anybody. You can do as many dumb things as you want.
Yeah, I do a lot of them. Well, I'm going to close this, put on that last clip just to remind everyone, are you annoyed at the Trump raid? Whether or not you like Trump, you don't like his house being raided. What about the IRS? 87,000 with guns with shoot to kill orders. FBI corruption. Well, you're going to want to come join us September 3rd in the Washington Dulles area. Anatomy of a Police State is the Ron Paul Institute's 6th Washington Conference. I have a link there to get your tickets. I'm going to announce another speaker, actually, because we have a great speaker, someone that we've both admired for a long time, and that's Cheryl Chumley. She's the editorial page editor of the Washington Times. She's going to come and give a talk about the police state in the media, the mainstream media's contribution to the encroaching police state. We're super thrilled to have Cheryl there, and she will be joined by people like Doug McGregor, by John Whitehead, Jeff Dice of the Mises Institute, so many more. This is going to be another fantastic event. You're going to want to get your tickets and join us on September 3rd, Labor Day weekend. Spend a little bit of time Saturday meeting great people and having a nice time. Then you can go off, and there are some nice sites to see in the D.C. area. Go off and see some sites. Make it a great Labor Day weekend. Again, the link is in the description, so we'll see you there. Dr. Paul?
Very good. And that is the problem, the police state, because whether you're talking about medicine or any other subject, there's a police state out there, and we ran into it with COVID. We have a police state when we fight wars that are undeclared, on and on. So it is the police state mentality. And it's sort of like a cancer, because governments are always granted some authority, and there are some that argue they shouldn't even be granted that much. And the minimalists will grant authority to protect national defense and nothing else. But the principle, I think, is what counts. And if you can give up authority as a consent from the people to take care of such and such, you lose it elsewhere. But once we do this, it does grow and grow and grow. So the police state gets much bigger, and then it becomes ineffective. And sometimes it takes hundreds of years. I mean, look how long the ineffectiveness of the Roman Empire took. It took so long, but it finally burned itself out and disintegrated. All empires do, because they get beyond it. But you can't say some empires last maybe a decade or two, and they're so bad that people become alert and they react and refuse to accept the authority. So the police state mentality might last a short period of time, but eventually I think they always burn out. And I don't know where we are right now, but I think the police state is under legitimate and proper attack, more so than it has any other time in my lifetime, because a lot of the things that went on, whether it was the Depression or the wars that went on, it's always enhanced the power of the police state. And the wars always do this. And people, when they are propagandized, people are talked into saying, well, you have to give up a little freedom. I remember that argument coming to me after 9/11. Ron, you just don't understand. When you need protection and have to be made safe, you have to give up some freedom. So that prompted me to put a line in my speeches I gave. You never have to, and you never should have to give up your liberty for safety. You need to follow the Constitution, and maybe your devotion to the Second Amendment to assume the responsibility of defending yourself and your family would go a long way to solving that problem. want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.